All right, everyone, welcome back to another Insurance Toolkits podcast here, specifically in the lead trading series. We have a maybe not familiar, but at least an old-time face on here, my partner Frankie, but as I like to call him, the brains behind the operations, but maybe he has a little better introduction for himself than I do.
Yeah, so I know I haven't been on this podcast in a long time. I think the last one I did was with Joe a couple years ago. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Frankie. I'm the technical co-founder of Insurance Toolkits, which basically just means I am not an insurance agent and I write code all day.
But well, without you, people don't know that this is the brains behind the operations, meaning without him, everything that we get to do would pretty much cease to exist. So we wanted to kind of take a pivot with this lead train, podcast specifically because I think it was Warren Buffett who said that before you invest in a company, you should really believe in it. Otherwise, it's probably not going to end up that well, and you're going to make a lot of rash decisions and probably pull out too soon and those sorts of things. So we find it to be beneficial that when you're buying leads, you are so literally investing into that company because, obviously owning an agency, it's a cash flow business. You have to spend money to buy leads, and then you have to obviously go out there and close the deals. So it's cash being traded. You got to spend money, but then you also got to make it back. So to give you guys a little bit of the behind the scenes on kind of like the direction that we were taking, because it took, and we kind of laugh about it, but it took a long time from when the idea kind of was manifested that we're going to do the leads platform until it actually was live. That was a pretty good chunk of time because there's, we didn't want to rush into it and to kind of model off of the actual toolkit side with the underwriting software that we have. We wanted it to be as the best, as good as it could be. So the first question that we kind of had to ask ourselves more or less internally was what gap, and this is like a question, almost like a self-reflective question, was what gap in the current lead space did we feel was needed to be filled? And from like the agency or the sales side, the biggest one was when we're looking at these conglomerate companies and a lot of these big IMOs and big, multi-million dollar a month agencies, they're spending multiple six figures on a sometimes weekly basis to have the best software that gives them the most optimal and efficient opportunities to close as many deals as they can. But specifically when it comes to like speed to contact. So basically from when the lead is generated is point A, and then point B is when the agent gets a hold of it to actually go ahead and work it. And a lot of these companies have an average speed to contact of like 5 to 7 seconds, which is ridiculous, which to the consumer seems almost instantaneous. So our primary user base, a lot of you guys watching, we wanted to figure out, well, how can we put you guys in the best position to actually compete with these companies, if not outperform them? And then we came to the conclusion that not just a real-time lead, but an exclusive real-time lead that only you're getting, and it's only being sent to you as it's generated, was the most logical, efficient, and optimal way for agents to have success, especially in those first few years, when time is of the essence. So kind of, Frankie, what's kind of your take on that, I guess, from a technical perspective? Do you think it was more of an efficiency thing, or kind of just what are some thoughts just around there in general?
Well, I think just to go back to what you were saying earlier about like when we conceived the idea for the lead platform and when we finally shipped it, what we had the idea went back at about a year ago in August.
Yeah, I think it was 8% in Dallas last year.
So we are a very impatient bunch, and what we think is a long timeline for delivering software is actually, I think we got it out relatively quickly, especially the initial lead platform. The marketplace obviously came later, but that was more because of, volume restrictions, right, or constraints that we had at the time. But we got that initial lead platform out in 3 months, and just to talk to the efficiency piece, and again, what I was saying about we're a very impatient bunch. So we are trying to optimize for time not spent on the platform. So unlike companies like Facebook or Instagram or whatever, where they're trying to keep you on their website, we're trying to keep you off of our website. And what that translates to is software that is really highly efficient from a UI perspective and just a software perspective. And we're trying to minimize your clicks and the time it takes you to get the thing that you need so that you can make more money, right? So that was, I can go into a little bit more technical details of the lead platform specifically, But overall, that is our design philosophy for all the software insurance toolkits.
Yeah, and I think that was probably one of the things that I think I've said most common. Like that was like in the early stages, it was like the fewer clicks, the better. Like it doesn't matter. However, we can get to the least amount of clicks. That's the path of least resistance almost. And I guess it kind of segues into, I guess there's two perspectives on it, which is why it's kind of cool for the understanding piece, which is like why is, but also why was speed to contact such an important piece? Well, I mean, the overarching answer is because the first agent to contact a lead after they submit a lead request statistically is the agent that's going to close the deal. And even more so, you have to contact that lead, like honestly, we could say within 60 minutes, but within minutes is ideal, because we know that the attention span of most people is very, very short, and they can submit a request in this morning and then forget it by this evening. So I guess from a speed to contact perspective, like from like just trying to make it as efficient as we can, was that like a really, really important piece that you thought that we had to have? Like this can't launch until the speed to contact is quick? Or what's kind of your thoughts around the speed and efficiency? Because that's like the agent can, I mean, from when that lead is generated, basically we're the middleman, so like we control how fast the agent gets the lead. Do you think that was a big piece for you?
Yeah, I mean, like again, I'm not an agent, so a lot of what drove that efficiency piece was you guys, because Insurance Toolkits is developed by and for agents. That was our whole thing, right? So I wasn't sure in the beginning what the optimal design for the platform would be, and we went through several iterations, and it was very, very frustrating. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but looking back on the initial designs, they were terrible. But some designs that I thought were really good, when I gave them to you to test drive them, they were just not hitting those standards that we had in place, right? So just like on the marketplace, this is, we went through 3 iterations of the marketplace, and the first iteration, it would take say 500 milliseconds from when you clicked the state to when you'd be able to select the counties. And for a lot of platforms, or for a lot of other software, that seems okay. But for a piece of software like the Insurance Toolkits lead platform, which is trying to be this highly efficient, again, keep you off of it type of site, that was a no-no. And so when I gave that to you and I gave that to Joe, you both told me point blank, this is not acceptable. And so we had to go back and do it again, but it was worth it. And even though it took, it was very labor intensive and it took longer than it probably should have, those paid off in the end, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's huge too, that you mentioned, like the user interface and user experience. We wanted to match basically what we're known for on the toolkit side, which is, man, this is so easy to use. You don't have to overthink it. And I mean, as long as you can like really turn on a computer and log into it, you should really have no problem utilizing the actual software. And that was kind of the overwhelming like point of the whole thing. Unless there's some things that you have like that you can kind of think of, there was a handful of revisions, but a lot of it wasn't like these huge things that like needed to be completely like erased and restarted. It was like just little tweaks. It was almost like adding a little roadmap to like the next idea, like little tweaks, but have made these huge difference. Do you think from, I guess not just from a technical perspective, but do you think, I've always believed, I guess, that the more details you focus on, like the more zoomed in you look, the more, I guess, it's like they say, aim small, miss small, right? Like does that kind of carry over into the technical side of the leads platform, you think? Like the more you looked at one specific thing where you're like, okay, well, all of these things around it can kind of also get improved as well. Or is that not really how it was?
No, that's definitely how it was. There's a lot of subtleties with these sorts of things. And, I've talked to you about this philosophy, I guess, before too, but I think of software user interface design as like a Japanese garden. Yeah. So I try to cut out as much as possible to just distill it down to the minimum. Like what are the essential pieces and what is superfluous? Because I think it's very easy to keep adding these things that you think are just maybe like you think as a developer, it's very easy to fall into this trap of, oh, this would be great to have. It'd be great if it worked this way, or this is acceptable because it took me so much work. That's actually something that comes up a lot. And this is acceptable because it was so much work and I'm invested in the code or something. But the reality is you have to think of it from the agent's perspective. And for the agent, none of those things matter. The only thing that matters is how quickly can I get the thing that I need to do my job. And so that really drove, it's something as subtle as when you having the map on the marketplace page, right? We have the map on top of the page, and then without having to go to another page, you can see the results in real time as you're clicking on the states and selecting the counties. The leads are populating as you do that. So there's no time delay between clicking that search button and seeing the results. Even though the search button is there, it's not actually doing anything. And those sorts of, not doing anything other than scrolling you down.
Right.
Anyway, but those sorts of decisions, they seem small and insignificant, but they're actually very significant. And especially from a software design perspective, that took a lot of effort, and it took a lot of refactoring when we decided we wanted it to work that way. But it was only to save maybe a second, right? And a second seems like nothing, but I was thinking on the millisecond time frame. How can I save you milliseconds? And that's super important because those add up over time. And if you use a platform that is very snappy and responsive, it gives you the I want to make you accustomed to these sorts of
almost like a standard almost.
Yes, that standard.
Yeah, it's like this is our standard. We're not going to lower it. Which is, when you said that too, I think you said it's a small thing, but if that small thing was taken away, a lot of people would notice. It's the little things that you don't notice. Like, oh my gosh. Also, with that being said, I think in terms of like wanting to do it the right way, I think the heat map was like one of the first things that I was really trying to push early on. But it was the last thing that was one of the last things that was implemented because that's obviously a more challenging piece. But like how you mentioned, even the volume or the quantity is shown in, like, you don't even have to think about it. You can see it. It's right in front of you. There's no, you don't have to search and type and scroll and do all these crazy things. Which also brings to my next point I want to talk about, which was the integration. So like we have, with the lead platform, you can obviously have the lead sent to your email. You can have them sent to your cell phone, but also the GHL integration, which I think a lot of people may not be as aware about. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit from a technical perspective, and what was kind of the idea behind doing that?
Behind that, pushing to the go high level? Yeah,
like, do you think that integration, just some higher points on it?
People, we respect that people not everyone wants to use the Insurance Toolkits CRM, and
right.
Agents work in different ways, and that was a very low effort thing to add. And you can tell, I'm sure that people are appreciative of that feature. I'm not
definitely, especially on the agencies, or I guess on the agent side. Well, I guess a better question would be, do you think any more plans to do any other integrations outside of that?
Yeah, whatever. We're very open to integrations with other platforms. And it's funny because this is something that we were resistant to, or I was personally resistant to when we started developing Insurance Toolkits. But over time, as I've gotten to understand the industry better, integrations are something I'm become way more open to. And it's just a matter of people asking. If we're not integrated with some CRM that you would like us to be integrated with, especially on the lead platform, just reach out and we'll be happy to add that integration. It's relatively low effort now because we've set things up properly.
Yeah, I've always said a handful of times, like, Frankie is very, 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 very particular with who we work with, not just like what, but like everything, and I think that proprietary control is that proprietary, that mindset allows us to have the most amount of control, which allows us to be the most efficient and do things the right way, even if it takes more development time, more development effort, maybe a little more time to actually launch something. And this goes not even just with the actual toolkit itself and the lead platform, but unless it can pretty much check off every box and it's ready to go, we're not going to just launch something just to launch it, just to have it out there. We'll just launch a beta version and just see how it goes. Like, you got one shot to get it right. And I think if you guys have seen our other podcasts and interviews I've done with some of our bigger agency partners, we have, they're more experienced. This isn't the results everybody should expect, but we have some agency partners out there closing 40 and 50% of their leads. Like Stephanie James is the most notorious for that. Like her whole team is just crushing it. And she said, one of the biggest things is the technical side, how easy it is to use, how easy it is to load funds, place orders, the leads come in real time. So, I think, unless you have anything else to add, I think that was a pretty good overview of kind of the technical side and what thought process went into making this, so people can have, specifically our users and customers, can have a little better understanding of how high that we, have our standards. So they're not just buying leads from a company that has a good toolkit, but we take pride in doing things the right way.
Yeah, for sure. I have a question, if you don't mind. Because you've been in this, you've been interacting with the people who are using the platform. Excuse me. I'm wondering what do you think we could be working on to improve the lead platform in the coming years?
I think I've told you this a handful of times before. The biggest thing for me is I think agents, when they're coming into the lead space, coming to the insurance industry, they're almost scared to buy leads because they just see a number and they think, oh my gosh, I have to spend $1,000 a week on leads. If these other IMOs, I got to spend $1,000 a week if I want to make ends meet. But we're kind of flipping that script, and I think we can just continue to drive the quality of our leads. Like, there's nothing to me that's more important than having quality leads. So I think just continuously finding ways to drive better quality leads to our users, which is really always an ongoing process. If we won't get to a point where we've maxed out that ability. So I guess it may be not the answer you may be looking for, but more or less just always keeping our mind and not getting jaded to like what we're doing. Like, oh, this works. I guess the best way to answer that would be with this statement. People always say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But to me, if it's not broke, but it could be better, then it's just as good as broke. Mm-hmm. So I think that always keeping that mindset of like, we need to make sure that we're staying on top of this, because we're doing really great right now with it. We're driving the best quality leads, but in 6 months from now, there could be a new piece of technology that completely makes that obsolete. So I think always having that mindset of like, we're doing great, but where can we continuously improve?
Sure.
So I know it's not like a technical answer, but that would probably be my biggest thing, is just making sure that we're giving the best quality leads that we can.
And don't get complacent, right?
Don't get complacent and think, okay, well, we can forget about this for now. Yeah, quality drives consistency, in my opinion.
Very true.
So, yeah, well, I definitely appreciate everybody watching today. As always, if you guys have any questions, my email is in the description below. Definitely thank you, Frankie, for taking your time to talk with me today. And we will see you guys in the next one.